Kaela Mensha Khaine is one of the only two surviving gods of the Eldari before the recent awakening of Ynnead. In the old Eldari pantheon, he was second only to Asuryan himself in power, and was often shown as the enemy of Vaul, the smith god. He's also the most violent and reckless of the gods. Asuryan was so appalled by Khaine's murder of Slaanesh, a mortal Eldari, that he cursed him and made his hands drip eternally with the blood of Slaanesh, so that all would remember what he had done. The Eldari say that when Slaanesh awoke, it consumed each of the other Eldari gods in the warp in turn. While his counterparts were all devoured, Khaine took up his great sword and did battle with Slaanesh in the Imperium. Khaine was not strong enough to destroy it, but he too was too powerful to be defeated. Instead, his psychic signature in the warp was broken and scattered into pieces. These divine fragments were driven from the warp where they had done battle and came to rest in the heart of the infinity circuit of each craftworld. These pieces of the god became the avatars of Kaela Mensha Khaine that serve as the most potent unit to provide support to the Asuryan militaries of the craftworld. In times of war, the Asuryan can awaken the avatars to lead them into battle, though the prize is the sacrifice of an aspect warrior's life, for the avatar needs to possess a physical body to enter the material universe. The avatars of Khaine are towering monsters with skin of iron and molten cores, hands permanently dripping with blood as Khaine's did in the mythic cycles. Next we have the only other known surviving god of the ancient Eldari pantheon, Cegorach, also known as the Laughing God, the Great Harlequin, the Great Fool, and the First Fool, was a consummate trickster and the greatest artist among the Eldari gods. While most of their gods were destroyed by Slaanesh during the fall of the Eldari, according to legend, this deity survived because his mocking and self-interested nature distanced him from the collective psychic corruption and decadence of the ancient Eldari Empire that birthed the Dark Prince. Other legends tell that when all the other gods were destroyed, Cegorach fled before Slaanesh until Khaine rose to do battle with She Who Thirsts. It is said that during the fight between them, the Laughing God hid behind Khaine for protection, and in the aftermath of the struggle, he fled into the webway where Slaanesh could not find him. He still resides there, and is the only being in the universe who knows exactly where every door in the webway leads. As the master and patron god of the mysterious Harlequins, he is the only Eldari god that still remains in his original form, and he is dedicated to finding a way for the Eldari to defeat Slaanesh and reclaim their ancient greatness, a plan he and his followers call the Final Act. The Harlequins are protected from the soul thirst of Slaanesh in a different way from their craftworld brethren. While the Asuryan wear spirit stones which absorb their souls when they die to prevent them from being devoured by Slaanesh in the warp, the Harlequins are directly protected by their faith in their god's power, becoming one with his warp emanation upon their death. The only exception to this are the Harlequin solitaires, whose souls must be won from Slaanesh after their deaths by the Laughing God. Next, of course, Asuryan, the king of the gods. Sometimes known as the Phoenix King, Asuryan was the king of the pantheon of Eldari gods. While the mythic cycles seem to indicate that he held sway over all the others, he was, nevertheless, consumed by Slaanesh in the warp. He is often depicted in relation to fire and light, his chief symbols. The Asuryani believe that it is Asuryan who taught them how to use the Asuryani path to prevent their darker natures from overwhelming them, and is the reason they named themselves the Asuryani, the children of Asuryan. Then we have Isha, the goddess of the harvest. The great mother of the Eldari race, Isha is treated as a fertility goddess by the Eldar in many respects. She was imprisoned by Khaine for a period of time until Vaul paid her ransom. She is often depicted crying, and her symbol is a teared eye, symbolic of her sorrow in being separated from her mortal children. Her tears are said to have solidified to form the spirit stones which keep the Asuryani safe from Slaanesh after their death. It is rumored among the Asuryani that Isha has not been consumed by Slaanesh like most of the other Eldari gods, for the chaos god Nurgle, the Plague Lord, coveted the Eldari fertility goddess and rescued her from consumption, only to imprison her in his decaying mansion that lies within his foul realm in the warp. Those same stories claim that Nurgle cares for her by keeping her within a cage and feeding her the various diseases he concocts, only for her to whisper the cures for each one to mortals in real space when his back is turned. Next, Vaul, the god of the forges. The artificer and smith of the Eldari gods, Vaul is one of the central deities of their pantheon and an eternal enemy to Khaine. In order to purchase the freedom of his fellow gods Kurnos and Isha after they had been imprisoned by the war god for violating Asuryan's law against the gods, remaining separate from their mortal children, Khaine demanded 100 blades from the smith god as payment for their freedom. Vaul was unable to finish the last divinely crafted blade in time, and so hid a mortal forged blade amid the others of divine craftsmanship. This fooled Khaine long enough to get Isha and Kurnos to freedom, but when the blood-handed god realized he had been tricked, he cried out for vengeance. Vaul finished the final divine blade, Anaris, the Dawn Light, and took it to do battle with Khaine. Though it was the greatest of all swords, Khaine was the better warrior and crippled Vaul. The smith god is often shown chained to his anvil, the punishment that Khaine set upon him for his deception. Then we have Morai-Heg, the goddess of fate. The crone goddess Morai-Heg is also the consort of Khaine and the third in a trinity of female Eldari goddesses, including Liliath and Isha, who together represent maiden, mother, and crone. Morai-Heg appears as an ancient and withered creature who holds the fate of mortals inside a rune pouch made of Eldari skin. In Eldari myth, she sought to partake of the eternal wisdom contained in her divine blood. She manipulated her husband, the war god Khaine, to cut off her hand so that she might drink deep of her own vitae. With this deed, she gained the knowledge that she sought, and in return Khaine gained the aspect of the Banshee. Her severed fingers each became one of the Eldari artifacts known as the Crone Words, now sought by the Ynnead to fully awaken Ynnead, the god of the dead. The original homeworlds of the Eldar that were lost to the Eye of Terror after the fall became known as Crone Worlds, a reference to the Crone goddess. The inhabitants of Craftworld Yggdrasil are noted for being devoted followers of Morai-Heg. Then, Ynnead, the god of the dead. Ynnead, the Whispering God, is a dream, the embodiment of a possibility that has yet to be fully realized. Some Asuryan seers long believed that when the last Asuryan dies during the Rana Dandra, the final battle with chaos, Ynnead will be born from the warp with the strength of all the Asuryan souls stored in the infinity circuits of the craft worlds and the world spirits of the Exodites. Ynnead will then have the power to destroy Slaanesh forever in a final battle, thus correcting the mistakes which led to the fall and allowing the race to be reincarnated into a universe free of the taint of chaos. Or at least, that is what the Asuryan believed would happen for almost 10,000 standard years. Then, in 999 M41, during the Battle of Port Demesnes on the moon of Cahiria, the High Farseer Eldar Ulthran partially completed a ritual intended to awaken Ynnead using the power of the souls found in the infinity circuits of every craft world in the galaxy. While the intervention of the Imperial Death Watch interrupted the ritual before it could be completed, the god of the dead was partially awakened and sought out a champion and prophet to complete his rise in the form of Yvraine, the Daughter of Shades. She founded a new Eldari faction dedicated to the Whispering God's resurrection, known as the Ynnead. The Ynnead, with members drawn from the Craftworld Eldari, the Harlequins, the Asuryan Outcasts, and the Drukhari of Cegorach, seek the restoration of the ancient Eldari race by collecting the artifact known as the Crone Words from across the galaxy. Their combined ritualistic use at a single focused point in real space will allow Ynnead to fully manifest his power in the warp, where he will combat Slaanesh, hopefully destroying the Prince of Chaos and freeing the Eldari from the soul-devouring curse of she who thirsts forever. Only then will the Eldar people, restored to the unity of the ancient Eldari, seek to rebuild a new and better interstellar empire.